Kellyanne Conway, formerly a part of the Trump administration, she's writing a tell-all book, has written it already. It's called, here's the deal, a memoir. Man, I'm waiting to see what she's gonna say about Donald Trump. Actually, what she's talking about is what her husband had been doing on the side, a little bit of cheating. You'll never guess who he was cheating with. Let's get to the details, this is really juicy. So this is what she said from her book. George was spending chunks of time in New York at the firm where he voluntarily went from partner to an of-counsel role, spending his nights alone at our house in Alpine, New Jersey, 240 miles away from DC. The numbers don't lie. During this time, the frequency and ferocity of his tweets accelerated. Clearly, he was cheating by tweeting.
Whoa, so clever.
More from that. I had already said publicly what I had said privately to George, that this daily deluge of insults by tweet against my boss, or as he put it sometimes, the people in the White House, violated our marriage vows to quote, love, honor, and cherish each other. Those vows, of course, do not mean we must agree about politics or policies or even the president. In our democracy, as in our marriage, George was free to disagree, even if it meant a complete 180 from his active support for Trump Pence, my wife 2016, and a whiplash change in character from privately brilliant to publicly bombastic. Wow. First, the cheating. Let's talk about the cheating first, and his veracity for going off 240 miles away where no one can catch him, tweeting in the dark. What are your thoughts here?
Okay, so this is a really interesting story if you ask me. So first, let me acknowledge I was wrong. So I thought that Kellyanne Conway and her husband were in cahoots the whole time. And I thought that she was gonna come out and write a book. She did write a book, that's what this from this, but I thought the contents of the book were gonna be very different. I thought she was that she was one of the primary leakers. And after the administration, she was gonna write a tell-all book about how they were all wrong. And then she was gonna say, ta-da, of course, why do you think George Conway was tweeting all those things? I told him to.
Yeah, this is your prediction, I forgot.
Right, remember that? Yeah. Wrong, that didn't happen at all. It turns out she actually was pissed at him. And they were not at all in cahoots, which then ironically leads me to saying, in this particular dispute, I think Kellyanne Conway's right. Drums, okay, why? Look, if I'm working somewhere and my wife starts tweeting like a madman against my boss at a place I like, at a company or an organization that I think is doing good in the world, and all of a sudden, like my wife is throwing sidewinders, right? And everybody's talking about it, and they're like, oh yeah, that's weird, man, that's super weird. Now, of course, politically, I agree with George Conway, not Kellyanne Conway, right? But I can see how that would create a problem in their marriage, and I think the person that created that problem, you could say, hey, Kellyanne Conway is step one. She created the problem by working for Trump, and he's acting out of conscience. Okay, maybe, but him tweeting like that definitely creates a problem in their marriage, no question.
What say you, socialist Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, look, good things are good and bad things are bad. And I say that because like, if it was like, if you're doing good things, right? And your partner is like out publicly attacking like good things that you're doing, that's one thing. But like, it's the Donald Trump administration, right? Like, you know what I mean? That's like, where do we draw the line, right? Like if your partner's going to like Klan rallies, right? If your partner's like going to Klan rallies and stuff like that, like, yeah, I feel like angry tweets about that is like a minimum, right? Is like a minimum. I do feel like we have a responsibility to hold our loved ones accountable for like the things that they're like doing out in the world, especially if they're engaging in like, some hateful, bigoted, whatever. So you could accuse me of having a double standard, right? Like that's sure, whatever, but I don't think it's a double standard. I think the standard is good things are good, bad things are bad. And if somebody that you care about is doing terrible things like working with the Donald Trump administration, then that's bad. That is bad, and it's good to call them out. Like
maybe it's good sometimes. Maybe it's good sometimes to point out that we have biases. I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, everyone has biases, and we don't like to admit it. But if you can explain your bias, like, yeah, I was biased against the Trump administration. I had Trump derangement syndrome because his approach to governing, if you can call it that, was to destroy anyone who he doesn't like, who he thinks and has assumptions about from the minute he went down the escalator. So you can like that stuff, that's your bias. I dislike bad people. That's my bias. I'm biased against bad people, racist, homophobic people, greedy, corrupt folks that try and get into office. I'm biased against them, and if you like them, then I guess you're in favor. It's one of those things, I guess, that we can admit it, and we don't have to act like we're angelic. But if once I know that person's who they are, most everything that they may say, I just don't trust.
I don't know why me and Ben are fighting this whole show. So listen, let me explain why I disagree. Although first, I'm gonna give you credit for an awesome slogan. What was it? Good things are good, bad things are bad. It's like it's like a Steven Seagal slogan, right? Don't be a bad guy, be a good guy, and then he breaks your arm. Okay. So I like it. I'm going to use it from now. Good things are good, bad things are bad. But here's my disagreement. So, Ben, I hear you, and if your husband or wife is going to a Klan rally, I get your urge to want to tackle them, not literally and physically, but the right way to do that is to do it in private. And then if that doesn't work, yeah, there's a line, right? So for folks in my life that are Trump supporters, let's say I talk to them less / not at all, right? Because there's a line. And so yeah, I mean, if George Conway had said, look, I think Donald Trump is so abhorrent, and he certainly believes that, and I can't believe you're helping him. You're one of his top henchmen. No, I'm sorry, but we got to part ways. And he asked for a divorce. That is super understandable. Saying it privately, I agree with you there, Ben. You got to say it privately. Hun, why are you going to work for them? The guy said there might be good guys on the Nazi side. He said we should ban all Muslims. He said all the Latino immigrants were rapists and criminals. What kind of a monster did I marry? Then I would have all the sympathy in the world. But for him to stay in the marriage and just attack her publicly, it's weird. And so is that going to create a problem in the marriage? Of course it is. So, yeah.
In principle, I agree with you, but I want to throw an asterisk on this because if it's a public official, right? If it's somebody connected to, like, if you have information that people don't publicly have, right? Which was sometimes was the situation that George Conway was in, sometimes it wasn't. I feel like that's when the public nature of it becomes like a relevant factor, right? I think that like if you have information about like, oh, they're gonna do this terrible thing, or oh, behind the scenes, this thing actually happened, like that's where I think there becomes like a little bit of relevance. In most instances, I agree that like privacy is super important because like that's the only space where you're gonna have a healthy conversation. If you can have a healthy conversation, dragging people online is not gonna be effective, especially if it's your loved ones. With the asterisks of if it's a public official or somebody in some type of higher office where there's an imbalance of information between that person and like the general public about like government stuff.
Yeah, but that's another act of conscience, which I would have supported, right? But he didn't do that. If he knew about the fake electors and how they're planning to basically do a coup against our democracy, releasing that information, by the way, wouldn't have made any difference. The right wing would have been like, oh, we're ending democracy? Yes, all right. They would have accidentally liked them. But yes, in that circumstance, you could make it public. But so I agree with your asterisks. But otherwise, try to keep it private and resolve it within the family first before you make anything public. Post-divorce, tweet anything you like.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.